Welcome back from that rest hold, everybody. We need to start getting into our main event of the evening, which is Superstar Scores Chris Jericho. The reason why we're doing this is, of course, because he made his appearance and his return at Night of Champions, then disappeared again. But we'll see what happens there. So he's been fresh on our minds, and we needed some kind of like a special feature, and we haven't done a Superstar Scores in a little bit. So, everything kind of worked out in the right possible way for us to just go ahead and do this. Chris Jericho is somebody who we've been wanting to do a Superstar Scores for a while because a lot of people have a lot of praise. So instead of always just going, we should do, this shitty guy, or we should do this, or whatever like that, it's interesting to do somebody who could end up doing very, very well. And if you don't know what a Superstar Scores segment is, well, it's a 10-part ranking system. Those parts are broken up into like subcategories and stuff like that. There are 5 overall umbrella categories. Man, I'm just like screwing up so much here. The ring skills, mic skills, appearance, backstage, and crowd reaction. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of those, and we're going to go around the table here and talk about which ones we gave him high scores for, which ones gave him low scores for, etc., etc. Then we're going to tally it up at the end and figure out where he ranks on a scale from 0 to 100. Of course, 100 being the best, 0 being the worst. So you get a score of 0 to 10 on each one of these categories, and we're going to start off with ring skills, which are athleticism and psychology. Athleticism is, of course, their moveset in the ring. If they botch often, do they have a strong finisher, or are they the type of person who can basically do nothing? You've got the wide range of somebody like a Kali at the very bottom, or you've got somebody like a Neville at the top. And I'm going to give him an 8 for that. I think that Jericho's very athletic. He's shown that he can do some high flying, but not, the most high flying person in the world. But he's got the ground technician kind of stuff going for him as well. He's got submission finishers. He has the code breaker. So he's got a wide range, and I like that. All positives on that end. And psychology is when you start getting into their storytelling abilities, whether or not they can draw you into the match, or if you're bored. Do they sell well? Do they play up their injuries at the right time in a match? That kind of stuff. I gave him a 9 for that, actually. I think that Jericho's even stronger when it comes to telling a story than he is with his athleticism. He's somebody who milks the audience when he's a heel, sets up the babyface to get a huge pop when he starts fighting back against Jericho, and even when he's a babyface, the crowd can get behind him a lot. So 8 and a 9 for me. Very high score starting it off. Who wants to talk about the ring skills?
Tag me.
All right, Drew. Go ahead, Lego.
All right, so for athletics, I gave him a 7, and the guy is very capable in the ring, but I don't put him up there with some of the other guys, and he's definitely declined in his older age, so I think a 7's a fair score. As far as psychology goes, he's had so many great matches, and I give him a solid 8 for that. Guy's incredible in the ring.
Drew or Peyton?
Okay, I'll go. When it comes to the athleticism, I was teetering between an 8 and a 9, and where Waco said that in his older ages, he hasn't been the most athletic guy, but at the same time, he has gotten older. So that's something I really can't fault him for, and that's just natural age. So I didn't take anything out when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I gave him an 8 for athleticism. He's not one of the best ever, but he was a great guy to go out there, and he had a wide range of moves. Good finishers all around, and he knows what moves to do. And then when it comes to psychology, he's a master of what he is. He's not the best ever, but he definitely could go out there and make you believe certain situations could happen. He's one of the best when it comes to pandering to the crowd, making them cheer for him, making them boo him. He's one of the best ever, so I'm going to give him a 9 for that.
Peyton?
For athleticism, I give him an 8. He is very good at moving around in the ring. He's very agile. He has done moves that now don't seem as impressive because you got people like Neville doing the red arrow, but he's pretty much the guy who popularized the acai moonsault here in the United States, or as you see him do it, the lion salt, and now a lot of people do that move, but he's the one who took that type of thing right here in the United States. He's done a few other things. Now everyone does a damn tope. He was also one of the first people to bring that into the United States. So he was sort of a groundbreaker in that sense. A neat thing about his style, too, is that he went all over the world to pick up all these little bits from every single type of style and incorporate it into it. So that's another reason why he was doing a lot of these things we just didn't see other people doing. And that goes into his psychology as well, which I'll also give him an 8. He had a very unique style compared to a lot of other people, especially when he was in WCW in the cruiserweight division.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these other guys were pure flips and all that. And he had a lot of the flips, but he also had a lot of the submissions and the ground and pound and the cocky heel style. He was a very unique part of that division.
Man of 1,004 holds. Got to get some points for pulling out some different things, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to give him a 9 because of the armbar.
So that takes us into Mike skills, which are charisma and character. Charisma is more so their flat out just pure ability on the microphone, whether they can cut a promo on the mic without stuttering or fucking up like I've been doing on this segment. Are they repetitive? Do they keep things fresh? That kind of a thing. Character is their gimmick. Can they pull off being a heel or a baby face, depending on what the situation calls for? Or are they somebody who's just kind of this bland dude out there in trunks? So I give him a 9 and an 8. 9 for charisma, 8 for character. I don't really think I need to explain the charisma part, right? I mean, he's the Ayatollah of rock and roll and shit. This dude has, made a career out of talking. And his character, I liked the snarky babyface cool guy when he was, complaining to Stephanie McMahon. The suit-wearing heel got a little bit thin. But when he was carrying himself as better than everybody else, that was something a little bit different. He's been cowardly cheater. He's been the good guy who makes people laugh. Wide range when it comes to that, too. And I've enjoyed pretty much all of what he's done, even though there are those times where it gets a little bit tiresome. But then he goes away for a while, comes back, tries to reinvent himself. So a lot of credit when it comes to that. 9 and an 8, as far as I'm concerned. Let's keep this going in the same pattern here. Wego, what do you think about the mic skills?
Alright, so for charisma, I have given him a 8. The guy on his best day was fantastic. I'd give him a 9 or 10. But in some of the shittier parts of his career, most recently the later stages, where he's just been Chris Jericho repeating old catchphrases, it's kind of dwindled, and that kind of goes into the character too. Chris Jericho has had some interesting characters and some interesting evolutions. There was the first Chris Jericho in the WWE where he had the odd ponytail on the top of his head, and he was going toe-to-toe with The Rock. I love that stuff. He went kind of stale for a while until he started his undisputed title gimmick, in my opinion. I liked some of the stuff that he did with Chris Benoit, but then he really found his thing with the heel Chris Jericho with the suits and stuff. I thought that was his best character work. And then came Light Bright Jericho. I hate Light Bright Jericho. You're going to hear me say that a lot. It's fucking terrible.
So what was your character score?
So 8 and 7.
Alright, Drew, what about you?
For charisma, I gave him a 9, and he's one of the best talkers. It's always a toss-up whether if he's a better talker or a better wrestler. Not many people get a talk show in WWE, and you have to be really good on the mic and hold yourself in interviews to do stuff like that in the middle of a Raw as well. So you gotta give him a 9 for charisma. Definitely one of the best talkers they've had in recent years. So, and when it goes to character, I gave him an 8. He never had anything that really stood out. He never had an Undertaker, if anything of that nature. But from the Crybaby from WCW to the Y2J when he first debuted to the suit guy in the late 2000s, and even Bright Light Jericho, I could get behind. So I gave him a 9 for charisma and an 8 for character.
When you said the suit guy, I was thinking the soup guy for a second. I thought that's what you had said.
Well, maybe the suit guy, they're the same pretty much.
Which I was just thinking, I think I'd be interested in soup guy Jericho. Be an interesting character. Peyton, what about the mic skills? Where does he rank for you?
For charisma, I gave him an 8. He is very entertaining as far as his energy and his style and all that, but he also is someone who is very, very guilty of relying on catchphrases, and we've seen that even worse in the latter part of his career more recently, and it's especially noticeable on his podcast. His podcast, you could write the script for every single episode 3 weeks in advance.
Hibbity dibbity.
Dibbity upon the thunder. Woo! Ugh, fucking terrible. And for character, I also gave him an 8. It's cool the guy was able to evolve, but it also was kind of just a guy, you know? There was nothing truly colorful there in any of them. So it's good. I'll give him an 8, though.
So
I like how Payton articulated himself, so pretend that was my opinion.
appearance, physique, and entrance are in this set of categories. We've got, of course, physique is pretty self-explanatory, right? What do they look like? There we go. That's it. Entrance, though, a little bit of clarification. That incorporates their music, pyro, the taunts that they do, any kind of like actions, poses, etc., like that kind of stuff. And it can be from their full career. So with somebody who has had different entrances, you know, you got to factor in all of them, all the good, all the bad. Physique, I gave him a 7. I think that Jericho has a lot of credit for staying in really good shape for, how long has he been wrestling? Like 20-something years or whatever like that? Guy's never been in bad shape. But at the same time, you got to look at who would be an 8, 9, and a 10. Those guys are the ones that are more cut, more muscular, better suited for that kind of a physique that we would expect than Jericho. So it's a good score. He does get a lot of good marks for it, but I can't justify giving him, you know, an 8 or a 9 or something like that if I was going to give somebody like a Chris Masters or a John Cena or a John Morrison or something like that those higher up scores. Good idea for Jericho to stay lean all this time, but seen better. And entrance, I'm going to give the guy a 10. That's crazy, but I can't think of that many people that have had as awesome of an entrance for as long as they've had, and I'm still not tired of it. Undertaker is the person I keep holding as like the benchmark for this, and I'll admit that Jericho's doesn't come into the same realm that Undertaker's does, but Undertaker would even be an 11. So a 10 to me. You look at the music, great theme song. He's used the same one for all this time, and there's never been a reason not to. The pyro is always cool. He's energetic. And the different things like the Titantron and all that, that's changed over the years, and it's fit whatever his gimmick was. So it's adaptable, too, on top of it. So I gotta give him a 10, so that balances out to a 17 to me for the appearance side. Way go. How about appearance?
So for his physique, I only gave him a 7. The guy had a great physique and was built up for quite a while, but it slowly slipped, and it slipped even more as soon as the steroid scandal happened. The second steroid scandal. So, as far as Jericho's physique goes, I can't give him anything more than a 7. There's just too many guys I hold up above him as a better physique. For his entrance, I had it low at a 7, and then I moved it to an 8 just because I'd already thought about it, and there's a lot of variations of his entrance I really enjoyed. His initial one with the huge countdown was pretty fun. Then you had the one with the tunnel, and had like all the cool effects, and then he'd zoom out to his silhouette. So that was always awesome too. And I always got a kick and a chuckle out of him when he was doing this suited heel gimmick. He'd have this pyro but do nothing but just walk past it. It was fucking hilarious. It was like, you're a dick. Well done. So, 8 for entrance.
Drew?
For his physique, I gave him a 7, and he was never out of shape. He was always in great shape for the most part. He has a physique that I would love to have, but the only thing that holding him back, that he never had a really big frame in a way of, like, you see like a guy like John Cena, very muscular. Jericho is a little bit smaller when it comes to his natural frame, so that holds him back a little bit. If he was a few inches taller, I think he'd be an 8 or 9 for sure. But yeah, for that I gave him a 7. And for his entrance, this was actually very difficult to give me because I was trying to think how much I love it, but then I realized it's the best of all time. So I gave him a 10. Every time Jericho comes out, mark out for it. Anytime you hear the break the walls down now, because he doesn't do the countdown anymore for the most part, pulls it out every now and then. Love it every single time. So great music, great Titantron, pyro. Hey, pyro's pyro. So 10 out of 10 for me.
And Peyton?
For Physique, I gave him a 6. Once upon a time, Chris Jericho was actually very, very ripped. I don't think a lot of people actually remember this. You go back to his WCW run, the guy was like a fucking balloon. Like if you pushed him with a hangnail, he might pop. But he definitely did slim down, especially at his older age. I think it was more he just didn't want to have all that bad shit in his system, and he was transferring more into the dancing and all that other stuff. So it was more important for him to be nimble. That I get. Plus, his body just always looked funny because one of his old man skin on his legs, but he also has that weird shit with his pecs where they go outwards. So I could only give him a 6.
What's the name of that again?
Pectus excavatum.
There you go.
Wait, don't you
That,
add that?
Harry Potter enchantment.
Mm-hmm. Entrance, I give him an 8. It's very good, but there's been so many evolutions of it, and a lot of them I actually didn't like. I think the best one was the very first one, where it had all the city lights and all that going on with it. I thought that was the best rendition of it. From the moment it went down to the one that was more like fruity colored, and especially because that one ended when they were doing the countdown at 2. Like it would go 5, 4, 3, Y2J, and then all the pyro would go off. And I'm like, fuck you, that's not the whole countdown.
Little note that if people have been following for a while, they might still remember me mentioning this before, but this isn't, his entrance. This is just his re-debut kind of a thing, but that Save Us thing that they were doing.
Mm.
One of the songs that they used for those promos is called Interfere. That song's been my ringtone ever since that happened. I've had the same ringtone on whatever phone I've had for, 7 years now almost?
What was it called?
Interfere.
Shouldn't that be Kane's theme music? It's funny because he involves himself in every fucking match.
So I gotta see, the Save Us thing is probably my favorite. The codes dripping down and stuff. Always like that. That Titantron was cool.
The problem is that he was wearing some of the worst clothes of his career at that point.
Oh, so I
Especially
like the
when
tights with the
when
little code, the Matrixy tights.
No, but
When he
remember like the
debuted-
vest?
Oh, fucking
That
sparkly
silver vest he had? That was terrible.
Yeah, that vest sucked.
He looked like a douchebag with the haircut too when he first debuted. Still going for an awkward stage.
What a disappointing thing though when they did that reveal and the cameraman went to the wrong angle. Like when he turns around, he's already had turned around when they get the shot back. Come on, Kevin Dunn. Backstage is our next set. That's Professionalism and Marketability. This is always the one that's a little bit hairy because they kind of go back and forth a little bit. But what they basically boil down to is, are they a locker room leader or do they cause problems behind the scenes? Do they get bogged down into politics? Do they fuck people over a lot because they want to win matches and they refuse to job? Then there's the situation when it comes to their public relations stuff as an entertainer. There are factors like their arrest record, their charity work, and their ability to be able to go on a talk show and promote the company. Or are they the type of person that you would never trust to do that because they would just get into trouble? So you gotta look at it as sort of like Hulk Hogan. Horrible score with this if we were gonna do it right now, because he is just persona non grata in WWE. And then you look at a John Cena, who is like fucking, God compared to that. And the professionalism side of things, although the locker room stuff, somebody recently, I can't remember who it was for sure, but it was one of the older guys, and he's not like a WWE older guy, he's somebody like a JJ Dillon or something who's
You're on
sorta
about Billy
outside.
Starr, Super Graham, Larry Zbyszko's got beef with him. A lot of people got beef with Jericho.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about somebody was cutting a promo or talking about an interview or whatever, and they said that when Undertaker leaves, that the locker room's going to suffer greatly because he's such like the example of a professional person that people follow. That's kind of what you need to focus on when it comes to professionalism and stuff. So a little bit of clarity when it comes to that. But again, this is the segment where the two of them sort of overlap a lot. And I usually tend to give them the same kind of scores. I give them a 7 for both. I think that Jericho's had his problems. Wego brought up a couple things right here. But at the same time, he has still proven that he's got a lot of positive things he can bring to the company. And he's a guy that you can trust to go out there and to like host a TV show, let alone cut a promo about why he loves WWE. He always is talking about how he'll never work for any company other than WWE. Never says bad shit about it like a Scott Steiner on TNA. And you can ignore some of the bad things. Some of the other things you got to dock some points for. So as far as I'm concerned, he gets a 7 for both. But this was the one where if anything's going to change on my score, depending on what you guys say, probably be one of these two. So we go. What do you think?
Two sevens also. So let's just think. Rob Van Dam, there was an incident with him, the Bill Goldberg incident. Larry Zbyszko, superstar Billy Graham's got beef with him.
Bill Grimm.
There's so many people. Like, there's a decent list of people that have had incidents with Chris Jericho, so I'm gonna give him his professionalism a 7 for that. And then as far as his talk show, like, as far as his marketability and stuff, there's such an overlap, and there's obviously incidents where he's been caught in some drunken altercation multiple times, and his mugshot's been out a fair few times. So he's not the company guy, but by no means is he some fucking asshole that's that's causing WWE a whole bunch of issues. So I think 7's fair in both scores.
Drew, what are you thinking?
For professionalism, I'm going to give him an 8. And a lot of the, you talk about some of the issues he had with some of these people. A lot of the guys you name are old. Billy Graham tends to have an issue with a lot of people nowadays. Larry Zbyszko is Larry Zbyszko. I'm not going to say anything about, RVD and Bill Goldberg, because enough, you can find all that stuff on the internet. But right now, he puts about everyone he comes back, puts them all over. So he knows that right now in his time that he needs to be the veteran to help make stars out of other people, and that's what he's been doing for the past few years. So, and never seemed to be the type of guy who needed a world title to be relevant. He only held 4 or 5 his whole entire time in WWE. So for that, I gave him an 8.
Yeah, that's like a fucking huge accomplishment.
Somebody like Wade Barrett's like, fuck! Can't even get one, goddamn.
So, gave him an 8 for that, and then for marketability, I gave him an 8 as well. And he's a company guy. He has his podcast, so a lot of people will go for him for that. But also, he's a guy that WWE could trot out there for PR events, parodies, a lot of stuff. And Chris Jericho's a name, not in the mainstream per se, but he's a guy that a lot of people can see and like, hey, yeah, you're a WWE. What's going on with that? When are you going to go back to WWE? He's on tour. He has a lot of cross branding, if you may say. So for that, I gave him an 8.
Aiden, what are you thinking about backstage stuff?
Professionalism, he gets a 4. Guy is a jackass. He has heat with a lot of people. Remember that time he punched out a female fan?
Okay, she deserved that.
Nobody deserves that.
No, she was harassing him. She was clinging onto his fucking car and trying to open it. Bitch deserved it. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah, people do that all the time to frickin' celebrities. You think the Jonas Brothers do that to their fans?
They should.
Worse. You don't know what those fuckers do.
Yeah, they sing.
So, and, you talk about how he could be a good guy to go out there and speak well about the company, only when it's convenient to him. Remember that period of his life where he just basically, shut out WWE and was just like, yeah, no, I'm a rock star now. No, I'm doing all this other stuff. Remember, Tony? He doesn't dabble.
Oh, you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking it down. Payton's right. The guy's a cunt. Yeah. He's getting a 5.
He's a fucking rowdy rock and roller Canadian hockey fan. All right, fuck that guy. Professionalism, he gets a 4. Marketability, he gets a 5, and he should be considered himself lucky he's got that much. Only because he's been on all these other TV shows, so I give him a 5 for the marketability. Otherwise, I would mark him lower for that.
You know what? You convinced me to dock him down 2 points here.
Yeah, I dropped him 2 on professionalism. My score's back down to where it started.
I'm gonna drop him. I think I'm gonna give him a 5 for professionalism and a 7 for marketability. Still,
that's where I am.
That's your choice.
Yeah. That leads us into our final set, which is crowd reaction, popularity, and credibility. Popularity measures things like their Twitter and Facebook followers, their merchandise, which we don't know the full numbers for, but we can kind of guess, the ratings when they're on screen, if they're the type of people that people tune in specifically for, like a Brock Lesnar, or if they're somebody that people turn the channel because they don't want to fucking see them. And actually the crowd reaction too. Cheers and boos factored in here. Credibility, though, that's where their lineage and their history comes in. Is a person somebody who is a main eventer or even a future legend? Or are they somebody who people just look at as a jobber? You know, a lot of that's kayfabe and stuff, of course, so it's not like, well, this guy was the best wrestler, and of course he's a 10 out of 10 kind of a thing like that, but usually if somebody's an amazing wrestler, they get a pretty decent run and stuff. So I am going to give him an 8 for popularity. I think that he's arguably one of the most popular kind of guys that they've had in WWE, but nowhere near the same level when it comes to The Rock and Hogan and stuff. He's had a career outside of WWE, which is a huge testament to his popularity. Big pop culture icon, but he's not The Rock. You just can't compare it. So I can't give him a 9, let alone a 10. And I was really stuck when it came to credibility. And I'm going to probably get swayed a little bit here, but what the number I gave him before was an 8.5. He's a guy that has had multiple world title reigns. He's the longest, or not the longest, the most intercontinental title reigns out of anybody. Definitely a headliner for the Hall of Fame one year. But at the same time, Jericho won a lot of that by cheating. And when he did win them, especially like world title stuff, wasn't really booked as the strongest champion all the time either.
A lot of fluky wins.
Yeah, so I think I might be going down a little bit when it comes to that, but I'm going to wait until everybody's said their piece and kind of factor that all in there. Wago, what are you thinking with popularity and credibility? How's the crowd reaction go?
All right, so Chris Jericho is not the guy that draws the money. He's the guy that works with the guys that draws the money. That phrase has been used with Triple H more than anyone, but I put him a peg below Triple H, so that puts him at a 7 for me. By no means is he not an over guy, but he's not the guy that sells out arenas. There's very few people, in my opinion, buy their ticket to go out and see Chris Jericho. As far as his credibility goes, it's another 7 for me. Sure, he was the first undisputed champion ever, and sure, he's a multiple-time world champion. Here's the thing. I buy him beating Randy Orton. I also buy Evan Bourne beating Chris Jericho.
Man. You might have just really hurt his credibility score for me by saying that. That's a good thing to bring up. While I ponder about that, Drew, what's your crowd reaction score?
For popularity, I gave him an 8, and, he's a guy that, people cheer for when he gets out there. And, he's pretty much an enhancement talent. He works with people that do make the money for the most part. People are happy to see him for the most part when he's on, so for that, I give him an 8. And for credibility, I gave him a 9. He's a multi-time world champion. He's a future Hall of Famer. And, he's a guy that constantly has, showed that he is a legend. And a lot of people, announcers now, refer to him as a legend for the most part. So I will be giving him a 9.
Peyton, what are you thinking?
I'm going to be doing the double 7s for him as well. This is a guy who a lot of people like, but he, as Wago said, is not someone who's selling lots of tickets. I have a Jericho shirt. I was a huge fan of Jericho. At one point, I considered Jericho one of my favorite wrestlers, but I would never put him anywhere near the level of Stone Cold or a Rock. I wouldn't even put him at the level of like the New Age Outlaws were at that time period. So certainly wasn't there. And he's a guy who has a lot of respect. He's been around for a lot of years, done a lot of things, worked all over the world. What I think his reputation is ultimately going to go down as, especially because he has that record for the most intercontinental title runs, is the greatest mid-card act of all time. And that's what I consider Chris Jericho. And when you're at that level, I consider you the top of what I would consider the middle numbers, which would be 7. So he gets a 7 for his popularity and his credibility.
I think I'm going to have to move that 8.5 down to a 7.
It was the Evan Bourne comment, wasn't it?
That and the mid-card one. Because that kind of factored in there. The top of the mid-card, that's why he can lose to an Evan Bourne. So, my final tally, originally before we started doing this, back before we even started talking about it, before we started doing this, that kind of a thing, I had originally had him higher than Shawn Michaels, who has the highest score out of anybody that I've done so far, which was an 83. I had him at an 83.5. After talking it over with people, he's down to a 78. So he figured out he lost, quite a bit there. That makes him tied for the number 2 spot with Triple H.
Triple H should fucking hate that.
He probably would, wouldn't he? I actually went ahead and I wrote down all of the scores from everybody that we've done in the past from my side of things. I can't just go back and tally everybody's because that'll take a lot of time. If you guys want to do that and send it to us, great, fantastic. I'd appreciate it. But yeah, he is still number 2 with Triple H, and not too far away from him. Brock Lesnar's got 75. So I think that there's a divide showing in my mind right now when it comes to like the people that are main event guys and stuff, but still have some flaws, are in that 70-something range. And then you look at somebody like Bob Holly, Steve Blackman, that's 51 and 50. Because they're like the mid-carders and stuff. And then you got an RVD who I just don't like, and he's a 45. He's the lowest so far.
That's so unjustified.
Oh, it's so justified.
No,
It's
it isn't.
totally justified. You got low scores for pretty much everybody, even Dace.
Yeah, and Dace...
Well, Dace is giving him a 5 for everything.
Yeah, Dace doesn't care. Dace doesn't count. We need to redo this. I demand a recount.
Actually, I think he gave him a 1 for one thing.
He might have...
He's like, I give him a 1.
It might have been like Physique or something. Just to be like a dick. So yeah, Jericho gets a 78. Still a very, very high score, of course. I mean, 78 is in the green section. If you're looking on the screen right now where it's the, red to yellow to green light kind of a thing. So, he should be proud of that when you come into, like, use this website.
Proud that a bunch of jackasses that makes a fucking glossary of their own jokes voted in the 70s.
Mr. Jericho, we like to ask you a bunch of questions. What do you think about possibly going into the Hall of Fame? Oh, I think I can get that kind of a career or whatever. What do you think about getting a 78 on Smark Out Moment? What the fuck you talking about? Oh, that's the website that asks you if you dabble in shit. So, what's your final score, Wago, when you tally everything up?
Well, I initially had it at a 71. Then it went up to a 73. Then Payton made it go back down to a 71.
Well.
So, yeah, he just makes it above a 70.
Drew, what about you?
I gave him an 84.
84?
Jesus.
Damn, that's even higher than what my previous score was.
God, you're young.
Jericho's my favorite. So.
You know what made me realize how young Drew is when he said, he's only had like 4 or 5 world title runs.
I know, that was depressing as hell.
God.
You know what's funny about that? The first thing that flashed in my mind was the shot of Bret Hart holding up the 5.
Oh, yeah.
When he was just like, I won it 5 times. And I remember when that happened, I was just like, he's won it 5 times?
Such a big deal.
Fuck, man.
And then Cena's fucking winning it every other month.
15, 16 times.
You know, won it ridiculously amount of times, like really quickly, was Edge.
Edge, yeah. It was like,
did.
like 4 years and he won it like 11 times?
Yeah, because he was feuding with Cena, so Cena needed those wins, apparently.
And, Peyton, what's your final total score?
69.
That is my Roddy Piper score.
Roddy Piper got a 71 for me, actually. Outscoring Jericho. I was surprised.
Surprised on that one.
Is an 84 really unjustified?
I think so. I think you're giving him way too much credit, dude.
Well,
Especially at this point of his career. If we did superstar scores for him in like 2003 or 2007, yeah, I would probably give him a higher.
Well,
Yeah,
look at it this
I
way,
know
though.
you said a couple of times, well, that was a part of his career when he's old, but that counts.
Mhm.
Well,
As-
to be
as
fair,
a
you
whole.
can't really fault him for athleticism, because if that's the case, an Undertaker would not be like an 8 or so, which what you give him now. His athleticism is,
I'd give
one of the best
Undertaker
in his
a
career.
6 or 7.
See, so
Always. It's because Undertaker early in his career was total shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he couldn't
Undertaker
move
would
that
get a
well.
low one because he deserves a low one, old or young. It counts. It ducks points.
But if you think about the 4
No,
scores that we have right now, Drew gave him an 84, Peyton got him a 69, right? That's what you said?
Mhm.
And Wago and I are in the 70s range. So it balances out. Higher score, lower score, and then in the middle.
I think
Yeah,
you guys are in the lower 70s though, and he's like mid 80s. He's like
Yeah.
way up there.
I'm 78.
I'm 71.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Peyton are kind of similar.
Also, I didn't give in the peer pressure like Tony and change my score.
That's not peer pressure. It's just making me think twice about
You
something.
gave in the
It really
peer
gives it
pressure.
a peer pressure.
Yeah,
Exactly.
see, it's a sign of a good politician. You change your fucking opinion when given new evidence.
You had a 72, Wigo?
71.
71? Alright, so the average to that, because that 72 has been
71.
stuck in my head. I typed out Neville and being on the same level the other day.
Oh,
And it's just like Neville level.
You actually said it earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You're like, well, when it's on an athletic level, Neville's a 10. I'm like,
Yeah.
Neville level.
And Neville level and 77 now are just like burned in my brain. But if you take the 69, the 84, the 78, and the 71, and you balance them all out and you figure out the average, 75.5. Pretty good score. And that works out with that Brock Lesnar 75 that I gave him and stuff like that. So tell us what you guys would rank Chris Jericho on that 0 to 100 scale for all the different categories that we broke down, and what you think about our rankings too, because, we'd like to get your opinions about that. Baby. Dibbity dibbity. So we have one more thing that we need to do for this episode, and that is the Fantasy League. That's going to be coming up in the next part. So if you're on iTunes and Stitcher, sit back, relax, and we'll be right back. And if you're on YouTube, click on part 5.